the maximum number of flights and the maximum number of duty period operations enhancing have been restricted to 8 hours instead of the 10-hour period. So obviously a lot of mandates being coming in with the fact that several airlines have written to the government saying that they're having this issue concerning the health of the pilots in particular, whether it's the physical health or the mental health, given the fact that it will actually ensure that the operations are maximized and of course the fatigue is minimized. So these are big reforms being undertaken by the Ministry of Civil Aviation, something which Zahid Rameez has been able to preside over and confirm.
Right, Payal, thank you so much for getting us details on that. It's definitely coming off reprieve as far as the aviation sector and the crew is concerned. Shifting focus now to the big story that we've been tracking here all through the weekend, all day today, and that is the diplomatic standoff that we're now seeing between Maldives and India. It all started with Prime Minister Modi's visit to Lakshadweep last week, where he spoke of the tropical paradise that India boasts of and why it should be promoted more heavily as far as tourism is concerned. Many comparisons were then made on social media as far as Maldives went. Then, unfortunately, we had three leaders, one minister in the Maldivian government who came out yesterday. There were racist slurs and insults towards the Prime Minister and India that were levelled. That went on to spiral into a big diplomatic standoff. We saw the envoy being summoned here in the national capital. Answers were demanded from them. We've seen that minister being suspended as well. A public apology from the president is also a demand that's coming in from quarters within the government there in Maldives. We have some more information now as far as how the Indian government is looking at this, and this is really what we want to get you through. This is the information that we're gathering from our source within the government here in India as far as the comments that have come to the fore from politicians in Maldives there. We're given to understand that our government is not taking this lightly. We're keeping a close watch, and we believe that the fact that the current president of Maldives is a China-leaning politician is something to do with why we're seeing these kind of comments coming to the fore. So here's what we have learned from our sources within the government. We're given to understand that Mohammad Moizu is the first, as his first state visit, decided to visit Turkey and then China. He embarked on his China visit today, in fact. Now, there is precedence of most of the presidents of Maldives to have visited India first. That is something he walked away from. Turkey is seen as a base for Kashmiri separatists. It's also seen to be an anti-India voice. So that is something that could be responsible why we see such emboldening hate or comments that have come to the fore from the political class there. China is also eyeing areas of India's interests. Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives. They're all something that there are all nations that have been very, very close, have had close ties with India, but China seems to be wanting to have the upper hand there. There is a traditional practice of presidents of Maldives to visit India, but so far as the new president of the country is concerned, he has no plans of an official visit to India just as yet. This provocation suggests that he is open to hostile ties with India is also something that some people believe as far as power corridors here in India are concerned, which is why they are keeping a close watch on what exactly is transpiring. He could be pleasing Muslim nations, China especially, and the Middle East, to gain more influence. That is also something that people believe here in our power corridors. What the government of India is going to be doing, that is something we'll keep a close eye on, but it is something that cannot be taken lightly, and that's really the message that was sent to the envoy of Maldives when he was summoned this morning as well. India and Maldives have been allies for 6 decades. We need to maintain mutual respect is the underlying message that has been sent out, which is why we had ministers from the Maldivian government yesterday come out and say that this comment that has come to the fore from a sitting minister is nowhere close to what the government's official stand is, but the damage is already done, unfortunately. Maldives officials' remark do not reflect the tone of their foreign policy is what the government has there gone on to say. It is also something that the Indian government is going to be circumspect about. It is a comment that has come to the fore from one or a few other politicians. It may not be their policy, but this is something that needs to be arrested just now, and it cannot spiral. That's really what we're looking at, and that's the message India is sending out. Anand Narasimhan, my colleague, joining us, getting us more perspective on this. The timing of this is all very interesting, isn't it? The comments come just 24 hours before we see the president of Maldives move to China, something of a tradition that he's walked away from. India was a preferred first destination for a state visit for most of his predecessors. Unfortunately, he hasn't done that.
Well, it's been about 60 years as a tradition that the newly elected leader usually comes to Maldives. But this entire election campaign of President Muizu has been around an anti-India rhetoric and a narrative. The other aspect is that the Belt and Road Initiative, now that they are a part of, also moves into this, string of pearls design of the Chinese. And this is something which was Mao's vision, which President Xi Jinping is currently pushing on. But more dangerously, Maldives is now seeming to be falling into the debt trap. The other aspect is it's quite rich coming from Muizu and his ilk and his ministers trying to target Prime Minister Narendra Modi and India on somewhere religious lines and using the Hindu versus Muslim card, especially when President Muizu has nothing to say about the Uyghur persecution by the PLA in the new territory of Xinjiang that's been forcibly annexed by the Chinese. So there is no conversation there. But the Turkey-China axis also makes it interesting that Maldives has also become a hotbed for radicalization, for gangsters to operate it as a bed, and maximum number of recruits, density of population wise and area wise, contributing towards the Daesh cadre in Syria was from the Maldives. So there are some records which are a little bit worrying geopolitically, and otherwise also the axis of power or shift in axis is something which will be a cause for concern. But the tone and tonality that's been adopted by some of the ministers is not just racist, it also borders on bigotry or a very, very bigoted, hateful line that they have taken, which perhaps is stemming from a particular sense of religious exclusivity. Now that is unfortunate because India is one of the biggest contributors, not just via tourism. We contribute to nearly, majority of the tourism, nearly 2 lakh tourists have gone to Maldives in 2023 itself. But tourism is 18% of GDP. But their policing programs we have backed. Their biggest connectivity project has been backed by Bharat. And despite that, this stabbing in the back, especially when there was no mention about Maldives at all by the Prime Minister. A nation's Prime Minister is well within his right to talk up the destinations within his or her own country, and that's exactly what PM Narendra Modi did. Those who fell for this entire social media conversation, they now have to reflect, and somewhere perhaps the damage is done because the visits to Turkey and Beijing are a big signal along with the poll campaign itself. And despite the anti-India rhetoric that was used in the polls, Poonam, as I hand it back to you, PM Narendra Modi was one of the first to congratulate President Muizu. But despite that, they have decided to walk this. We've seen what happened with Djibouti, we've seen what happened with Sri Lanka, we saw what happened with Nepal, and Maldives is walking perhaps right into the debt trap, and that's dangerous.
And that's something hopefully they do see as far as the bigger picture goes. Anand, thank you so much for getting us that perspective. Former diplomat KB Fabian also joining us here on this broadcast. So thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18. How do you read into what's transpired over the last 24 hours? One, we have the comments coming in from several politicians in Maldives. One, a sitting minister. Then we have the president of the country today embark on a visit to China. His official state visit to China. Something that hasn't been done by his predecessors of picking China over India.
Thank you. I think we have to bring down the temperature. The art of diplomacy is de-escalation. The tweets or statements made by 2 or 3 Maldivian ministers or others, well, they were most, unnecessary because, as already pointed out, Prime Minister Modi did not say anything about Maldives. And if India is developing Lakshadweep or Andaman Nicobar Islands or any other part of India, well, that shouldn't be a matter which should in any way come in the way of good Indo-Maldivian relations. And what both countries have to realize is that one cannot change the neighbors. So, and there is a common security interest, between the 2 countries. But India has to take note of the fact that the current president of Maldives got voted into power based on a platform, manifesto, which said that he would get rid of the Indian military presence in Maldives. That included 2 helicopters also. Now, I would say, without being privy to intergovernmental correspondence, because I'm no longer in the government, I would say that we could have shown some accommodation and by saying that, we will withdraw the military helicopters, but they can be replaced by, civilian helicopters. You know what I mean? Indian private company.
Yes.
So that, he can save his face. After all, he had put it out in writing in his manifesto.
Right.
So that would have been an imaginative way of, and as regards the Dornier aircraft and the vessel, we can talk. But my point is that we should have given him some space.
Sure.
Which I'm afraid we didn't give. And we also have to recognize that China is actively working. You know what I mean? So we should not do anything to drive them into a corner or rather into Chinese
And I believe, and I believe that on both sides, the agreement really is that this is just one particular individual from the government who's gone on to make these comments, and not necessarily the tone of the government would be there in Maldives. But so thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18 and sharing your perspective. Our former diplomat Anil Trigunia joining us here on this broadcast as well. Thank you so much for speaking with us here on CNN News 18, sir. How do you read into this entire controversy? It has become an India versus Maldives diplomatic standoff over the last 24 hours. We had former diplomat earlier on the show as well who said perhaps we're reading too much into it and temperatures need to cool down. Do you agree?
Well, I think that this was not some ordinary citizen who was talking about this in such derogatory and diplomatic manner about a leader of a country or countrymen per se. So there have been a consistent trend by three ministers, not one. And therefore, I don't see that this was simply a one-off remark. Moreover, this has been also building up for quite some time with India Out campaign and all that on which this current government has come into power. So I think that this needs not be just shunned around, and this onus of correcting the course would lie with the government there, not with us. We are not saying anything. We have always stood by Maldives and all our neighboring countries, all our partners. We have worked for their welfare, for their progress, for their development. I mean, the Indo-Maldivian relations are a testament to it. But then what kind of, comments which are coming from there, or especially on the eve of the visit of President Modi to China, I think that this is not something that can be just lightly wished away. But at the same time, I believe that it will all depend now. The ball is actually in the Maldivian court. So it is up to the Maldivian government and the people to think about it, whether the relationship, the way it has been, the kind of whether economic engagement, security engagement, or whatever it is, beneficial to them with India or not.
Sure. Sure, so it can't be a coincidence and more needs to be done. We are hoping for an official word coming in from the president himself. He, of course, is on a state visit to China, which again is something that is seen as walking away from tradition as far as his predecessors picking India over China went. So are we seeing tone being set for what's to come as far as ties between the two countries goes? That's something that we will have to wait and watch out for. But Anil Trigunia, thank you so much for speaking with us and sharing your perspective here on CNN News 18. With that, it's time for a quick break on this edition of Nation at 5. But before we head into that break, a quick reminder of what awaits you 48 hours from now. It is India's biggest award night. It is a marquee event. What are we expecting at Indian of the Year 2023? Take a look.
It is India's biggest awards night, and we can share with our viewers that India's biggest superstar, Shah Rukh Khan, will be there on the 10th of January, 6 p.m. onwards, right here on CNN News 18, on TV, on our digital media platforms. You can also go to indianoftheyear.com, IOTY.com, where you have a whole host of what you can expect, not just in this edition, the 2023, which is the 14th edition of the Indian of the Year. You also have the various nominees from sports. You have Neeraj Chopra, Nikhat Zareen, rising sports star. You have the likes of Antim Pangal, R. Pragyananda. From the world of entertainment, there's Mani Ratnam, Deepika Padukone. Business, you have N. Chandrasekharan, Dinesh Khara. In Climate Warriors, as you mentioned, there are as many as 7 categories this time around. It's the highest that we've had for Indian of the Year in any of the last 14 editions. We've also had an eminent jury led by the likes of Harish Salve, Justice Indu Malhotra, Sanjeev Goenka, Javed Akhtar, who've all taken painstaking efforts to go through this entire list of 35 nominees and decide who are the outstanding Indians who have contributed in the year 2023. And like I said, the excitement is speaking. The biggest star of the Hindi film industry, the Badshah of Bollywood, is going to be there at 6 p.m. on the 10th of January. You can watch the show live on the CNN News 18 channel as well as on all our digital platforms. So do tune in for CNN News 18 Indian of the Year 2023, something that we are absolutely proud of being a part of, and we hope our viewers will also enjoy it just as much as we enjoyed bringing it to you. So tune in Wednesday 6 p.m. onwards, the 10th of January, for the biggest awards night in Indian news television. From sports to rising sports star, entertainment, business, climate warriors, youth icon, some of the biggest influencers are part of the Youth Icon nominees. Anirudh Ravichandar, a big hotshot musical director, he's there as well as part of the nominees. In social change, people who have made a difference to the lives of ordinary Indians, the likes of Dr. Ravi Kannan, Manju Srivastav, etc., are all the nominees. And like you mentioned, it's not just the jury this time around. We've also had popular voting that's been going on for the last 3 months. More than 1.5 lakh Indians have voted on IndianofTheYear.com. That is the highest, like I said, that we have had in terms of public participation for who Indians feel should be the Indian of the Year. So in addition to the jury of very, very eminent personalities from the world of films, from the world of law, from the world of sports, we've also had 1.5 lakh Indians who have taken part in a public vote on IndianofTheYear.com, and all of the winners in these 7 different fields will be revealed on Wednesday the 10th of January from 6 p.m. onwards. So do tune in here on CNN News 18 on television as well as on all our social media platforms.
The Pathan of the big screen. The Jawan who lights up 1 billion hearts. Meet India's biggest superstar at Indian of the Year 2023. RP Sanjeev Goenka Group presents Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January, 6 p.m. onwards.
Yes, I'm loaded right now.
प्रफुल्ल भाई, प्रधानमंत्री जी ने तो लक्षद्वीप की जमकर ब्रांडिंग कर दी, जिसके पिछले 3 साल से आप एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर हैं। क्या पूरी जो फौज टूट पड़ेगी, अब पर्यटकों की कैसे संभाल पाएंगे?
ब्रिजेश जी, इसकी हमें कोई ज्यादा चिंता नहीं है। हमारे पास जितना इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर अवेलेबल है, सच बताए तो जो होना चाहिए इतना 70 मतलब कि 7 दशक तक नहीं हुआ है, वो पीड़ा का विषय है। लेकिन टूरिस्ट की जितनी भी आवश्यकता है, इसको पूरा करने के लिए हम पूरी ईमानदारी से, पूरी निष्ठा से, पूरी ताकत से लगे हुए हैं और हमें जितनी आवश्यकता है उसको पूरा करने का प्रयास करेंगे। आपने एक बात सही बताया कि आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी का इस बार जो दौरा हुआ, इसके कारण लक्षद्वीप का भाग्य बदल गया है। लक्षद्वीप के लोगों में भी बहुत ही उत्साह और उमंग भी है। उनको ये लगता है कि उनका भाग्योदय सचमुच में होने जा रहा है, क्योंकि ये सिर्फ एक दिन के मतलब कि प्रधानमंत्री जी के एक दौरे के कारण टूरिस्टों की तादाद में इतनी बढ़ोतरी होगी। अभी जिस प्रकार से इंक्वायरी आ रही है, जो लोग हमें पूछ रहे हैं, हमें लगता है कि मतलब प्रदेशवासियों के लिए ये बहुत ही आनंद का विषय बना है। और इसका मैं आपको सबूत भी देता हूँ। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने अपने दौरे के दौरान अगती और कवरती दोनों जगह पे जनसाधारण सभाएं की। तो जनसभा में आपको बताते हुए मुझे गर्व और खुशी महसूस हो रही है। लोग अलग अलग बातें करते हैं, लेकिन वहां पे जो जितनी भी भीड़ थी, आप कल्पना कीजिए, कवरती जैसा कैपिटल टाउन जिसकी आबादी 10,000 है, वहां पे 6,000 से अधिक लोग जनसभा में उपस्थित रहे। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी को स्टैंडिंग ओवेशन दिया, पुष्प की वर्षा की और इतना चीयरिंग हुआ। मतलब वो बता रहे हैं कि उनको अब लग रहा है कि मोदी जी की विजिट के कारण वहां पे न सिर्फ टूरिज्म, इसके अलावा भी बहुत सारी चीजें जो बाकी है विकास के संदर्भ में, वहां जरूर उसमें बढ़ोतरी होगी।
प्रफुल्ल भाई, आपकी मालदीव ने कितनी मदद कर दी? जिस तरीके से वहां के कुछ मंत्रियों के गैर जिम्मेदाराना बयान आए, खासतौर पे प्रधानमंत्री के लक्षद्वीप दौरे के बाद, उन्होंने गंदगी को लेकर जो सो विभत्स किस्म की टिप्पणी की, एक तरह से चोट की। उससे जो भारत में जो एक जनमानस है, जिसमें कि काफी गुस्सा है, जो कि हमेशा मालदीव जाते रहा है, क्या वह गुस्सा भी जो है लक्षद्वीप के काम आएगा यहाँ के टूरिज्म को और बढ़ाने में?
उनके गुस्से के कारण हमें फायदा होगा ऐसा नहीं कह रहा हूं। हमें फायदा होगा हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जी के दौरे के कारण। ये बिल्कुल क्लियर कट है, ये क्लियर कट है।
मैं तो भारतीयों के गुस्से की बात कर रहा हूं, जो कि जिस तरीके से मालदीव का रिएक्शन आया, कुछ नेताओं का इररिस्पांसिबल बयान आया, उसकी वजह की बात कर रहा हूं।
ब्रजेश जी, मालदीव के जो जिम्मेवार लोग हैं, इस जिस भाषा का वो प्रयोग किया है, अशोभनीय भाषा का प्रयोग किया है, वो उनको तो शोभा बिल्कुल नहीं देता है। उन्होंने अपने संस्कार के अनुरूप बात कही है, लेकिन साथ ही साथ देशवासी आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के साथ कंधे से कंधा मिलाकर खड़े रहे, क्योंकि इस देश के स्वाभिमान का प्रश्न था। देश के स्वाभिमान के साथ अगर कोई खिलवाड़ करता है तो देश की जनता उसको कतई बर्दाश्त नहीं करेंगी, और इसका प्रत्यक्ष परोक्ष रूप से लक्षद्वीप को लाभ मिलता है, तो उसमें कोई गलत बात नहीं है। और आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने तो स्वदेशी चीजों का इस्तेमाल करने के लिए, मेक इन इंडिया की बात हो, वोकल फॉर लोकल की बात हो, हमारे स्थानीय टूरिस्ट डेस्टिनेशन है, चाहे वो डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग की बात हो, क्यों ना देश में ही उसका हमें भरपूर उपयोग करना चाहिए। वो उनका पहले से ही मत बना रहा है। तो ये दौरे के बाद उन्होंने बताई हुई सारी चीजें जो है, उसको जरूर बल भी मिला है।
प्रफुल्ल भाई, ये बताएं कि जिस तरीके से तमाम जो इंडियन सेलिब्रिटीज हैं वह लक्षद्वीप की बैटिंग कर रहे हैं, पिक्चर पोस्ट की जा रही है, प्रधानमंत्री का जो दौरा हुआ, उनके दौरे के तहत जो उन्होंने बंगारम के वीडियो और पिक्चर्स जो पोस्ट की, उसके बाद से भारत में के अलग अलग हिस्सों के जो टूरिस्ट हैं वह लक्षद्वीप की तरफ दौड़ेंगे। लेकिन जो कुछ चैलेंजेस भी हैं, जैसे कि मान लीजिए अगर किसी को हवाई जहाज से दिल्ली से पहुंचना हो अगती, जो कि एकमात्र एयरपोर्ट है, तो फिर क्या ऐसे लोगों को लक्षद्वीप कैटर कर पाने की अभी कंडीशन में है या समय लगेगा?
जितनी भी कमियां हैं उसको पूरी करने के लिए हम पूरी कोशिश कर रहे हैं। मोबिलाइजेशन का सवाल हो, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन का सवाल हो, कनेक्टिविटी का कोई प्रश्न हो, एकोमोडेशन की कोई समस्या हो, ये सारी चीजों में किस प्रकार से आगे हम बढ़ सकते हैं उस दिशा में हम कोशिश कर रहे हैं। जहां तक एयरपोर्ट का सवाल है, तो इस इतने छोटे आइलैंड पे आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी के सीधे मार्गदर्शन में उन्होंने हमें मार्गदर्शन किया, उनका डायरेक्शन भी दिया। उनके इस हिसाब से हमने एक नया एयरपोर्ट बनाने के लिए प्रपोजल जो भेजा है, मुझे लगता है कि कुछ ही दिनों में वो प्रपोजल सैंक्शन भी हो जाएगा और वहां आने वाले दिनों में काम भी होगा। इतना बड़ा काम करना है तो थोड़ा समय तो जरूर लगेगा, क्योंकि 7 दशक से जो नहीं हुआ है उसकी आपूर्ति हमें बहुत ही थोड़े समय में करना है, तो थोड़ी समस्या जरूर होगी, लेकिन हम उसको पूरा करेंगे ही करेंगे।
प्रॉब्लम भाई क्या ये भी है कि जो लक्षद्वीप में जो कुल 32 आइलैंड है, जिसमें कि सिर्फ 10 पर आबादी है, 22 ऐसे हैं जिस पर कि कोई आबादी नहीं रहती, वहां पर कुछ बड़े रिसोर्ट बनाने की तैयारी चल रही है क्या आपके प्रशासन द्वारा? 3 साल
बिल्कुल, ये
आपके
आप
पास हो गया चार्ज लिए हुए वहां का।
जी बिल्कुल, आप बिल्कुल सही आपने पूछा है। कड़मत हो या सुहेली हो, कड़मत इनहेबिटेड आइलैंड है जहां आबादी है, सुहेली है वो अनइनहेबिटेड आइलैंड है। ये वहां पे ताज ग्रुप वहां पे दोनों जगह पे रिसोर्ट बना रहा है, वाटर विला भी बना रहा है। बंगारम आइलैंड है वो अनइनहेबिटेड आइलैंड है, वहां पर भी टेंट सिटी का भी प्लानिंग हो चुका है। ठीक इसी प्रकार से थीनाकारा करके एक अनइनहेबिटेड आइलैंड है, वहां पे भी 200 टेंट सिटी का एक प्लानिंग हो चुका है और पाइपलाइन में है। अगत्ती में भी टेंट सिटी का प्लानिंग हो चुका है। कैपिटल कवरत्ती में भी टेंट सिटी का आयोजन हो गया है। मुझे लगता है बहुत ही जल्द, क्योंकि जो सुविधा उपलब्ध करानी है एकोमोडेशन के लिए, उसमें हमें सफलता जरूर मिलेगी।
जो लोग मालदीव्स जाते हैं दुनिया के तमाम हिस्सों से, वहां पर एक बड़ा आकर्षण ये होता है कि बड़े बड़े 5 स्टार 7 स्टार टाइप के रिसोर्ट्स हैं। क्या हम अगले कुछ वर्षों में लक्षद्वीप में भी इस तरह के रिसोर्ट देख पाएंगे, ताकि मालदीव जाने की किसी को जरूरत ही ना पड़े, पूरी दुनिया का टूरिस्ट जो है वह लक्षद्वीप में आए?
बिल्कुल सही है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने हमें डायरेक्शन दे दिया है कि यहाँ टूरिज्म पॉलिसी जो है इसमें जो भी बदलाव करना है, इसमें किस प्रकार से हम कर सकते हैं, वहां टूरिज्म को बढ़ावा मिले, जल्द ही जल्द मिले, और हाई एंड और साधारण आदमी को भी उसका लाभ मिले। दोनों प्रकार से टूरिज्म कैसे डेवलप कर सकते हैं उसका हमें डायरेक्शन मिला है और इस दिशा में हम काम कर रहे हैं।
प्रफुल्ल भाई, आपसे ये भी जानना चाहता हूँ कि अभी तक जो भी टूरिस्ट जो कि लक्षद्वीप जाते हैं, जाने के पहले उनको परमिट लेना होता है स्थानीय प्रशासन से, और वो एक कहीं ना कहीं एक समस्या रहती है, थोड़ा उनको कम्बरसम लगता है। क्या ये परमिट सिस्टम को भी एबॉलिश करने की आप सोच रहे हैं कि लोग फ्रीली जा सकें?
ब्रिजेश जी, मुझे लगता है कि हम मेन लैंड से समुद्र के बीच छोटे छोटे आइलैंडों में, ग्रुप ऑफ आइलैंड में हम 400 किलोमीटर की दूरी पे है। सामरिक दृष्टि से ये बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण भी है, तो थोड़ा चेक रखना भी, मतलब कि कौन आता है कौन जाता है, वो जो व्यवस्थाएं हैं उस व्यवस्था अगर चालू रहती है तो अच्छी बात है, इसमें कोई बुरा नहीं है। और जो पहले मैनुअल प्रोसेस था वो सारा हमने ऑनलाइन कर दिया है। अब किसी को ऑनलाइन परमिट लेने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, आसानी से परमिट मिल जाती है।
सबका साथ सबका विकास सबका विश्वास, यह प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी का शासन का सूत्र रहा है। 2019 में जब उन्होंने दोबारा प्रधानमंत्री के तौर पर शपथ ली थी, तो उन्होंने इस नारे को बुलंद भी किया था। ये बताएं कि लक्षद्वीप जो कि 99% जो पॉपुलेशन है वहां की मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन है, और जब 3 साल पहले आपने भी लक्षद्वीप के एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर के तौर पे चार्ज लिया था, दिसंबर 2020 मुझे याद है, तो उस समय जो है कई सारी कंट्रोवर्सीज हुई। आपने जब भी बैन किया था, या फिर जब शराबबंदी पॉलिसी वहां खत्म करने की बात की गई थी, हालांकि बंगारा में काफी पहले से शराब है, उस लक्षद्वीप में अब क्या लोगों में भरपूर भरोसा है कि ये सरकार कितनी गंभीर है लक्षद्वीप के ओवरऑल डेवलपमेंट के लिए, जो कि आपने खुद कहा कि 6 दशक तक।
ब्रिज डिस्टर्बेंस आ रहा है वहां से।
मैं एक बार फिर से आपसे पूछ रहा हूं कि प्रधानमंत्री मोदी की जो स्टेटेड पॉलिसी रही है, जो कि उन्होंने 2019 में इस बात को कहा भी, सबका साथ, सबका विकास, सबका विश्वास। लक्षद्वीप एक यूनिक यूनियन टेरिटरी है जहां पर कि 99% पॉपुलेशन जो है वह पॉपुलेशन मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन है। उसके लिए जो है उसमें कितना विश्वास का भाव भरा है।
ब्रिजेश जी, कुछ वहां से थोड़ा डिस्टर्बेंस आ रहा है, कोई काउंटिंग कर रहा है क्या है, कुछ मतलब डिस्टर्बेंस आ रहा है, ठीक से सुनाई भी नहीं दे रहा। जरा प्लीज आप रिपीट कीजिए, आई रिक्वेस्ट यू प्लीज।
मैं प्रफुल्ल भाई आपसे ये पूछ रहा हूं कि प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी ने नारा दिया था 2019 में, जब वो दूसरी बार प्रधानमंत्री बने थे, सबका साथ, सबका विश्वास, सबका विकास। लक्षद्वीप न सिर्फ भारत का सबसे छोटा केंद्र शासित प्रदेश है, बल्कि यहाँ की 99% पॉपुलेशन जो है मुस्लिम पॉपुलेशन है। जो प्रधानमंत्री मोदी का जो शासन है, चूंकि लक्षद्वीप केंद्र शासित प्रदेश भी है, वहां के लोगों में यह भरोसा, खासतौर पे जो विकास के कार्य वहां किए गए हैं पिछले कुछ वर्षों में, यह भरोसा कितना जगह है कि सबका विश्वास और सबका विकास करने को प्रधानमंत्री मोदी की सरकार आतुर है।
आपने सही बताया कि 96 प्लस जो पॉपुलेशन है वो ट्राइबल है। जहां तक धर्म का सवाल है तो वो मुस्लिम समाज से है। छोड़ दीजिए मुस्लिम हो या माइनॉरिटी हो, मेजोरिटी हो, उसमें हम जाना नहीं चाहते। फिर भी सूडो सेक्युलरिस्ट लोग जो बात करते हैं, उसको उस हिसाब से अगर हम देखें तो आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो मंत्र दिया है कि सबका साथ, सबका विकास, उसको चरितार्थ इस धरती पे, मतलब कि लक्षद्वीप पे बिल्कुल हुआ है। वो आपको देखने को मिलेगा। मुझे लगता है कि आने वाले दिनों में 20,000 करोड़ से अधिक लागत का इन्वेस्टमेंट यहाँ होगा और डेवलपमेंटल वर्क होगा। 10 आइलैंड है, 10 ग्रामीण पंचायत है जिसमें आबादी है, 64,000 पॉपुलेशन है टोटल। हिंदुस्तान के सबसे छोटी यूटी है और वहां पे इतने बड़े डेवलपमेंटल वर्क होना, वो अपने आप में इसका उत्तम उदाहरण। सवाल रहा विश्वास का, तो वो भी इस दौरे के दौरान सिद्ध हुआ है। आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी जब जनसभा में निकलते हैं, दोनों तरफ से स्टैंडिंग ओवेशन मिलता है, पुष्प वर्षा होती है, तो विश्वास से, उत्तम विश्वास से, इससे अच्छा विश्वास का क्या उदाहरण हो सकता है।
The Pathan of the big screen. The Jawan who lights up a billion hearts. Meet India's biggest superstar at Indian of the Year 2023. RP Sanjeev Goenka Group presents Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January, 6 p.m. onwards. With his effortless charm and 3 mega blockbusters, the king of Bollywood is coming to Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January 2024, 6 p.m. onwards on CNN News 18.
Welcome back. You're watching Nation at 5 with me, Poonam Burde. Today we had the Supreme Court come out and quash the remission order that was given out by the Gujarat government as far as the release of 11 rapists of Bilkis Bano is concerned. The 2022 order of the Supreme Court was illegal. The court was misled and the Gujarat government was complicit in misleading that court and misleading and suppressing the facts along with the convicts is something that the 2-judge bench today observed. It comes as a major reprieve as far as Bilkis Bano is concerned. The court had some very strong observations to be made. The political war of words escalated right after that with the opposition gunning for the BJP government. Listen in to all that's transpired inside the court and the political war that followed.
The honorable judges, Justice Nagaratna and Justice Bhuiya, they have very categorically stated what is the legal analysis and reason for setting aside, quashing the remission orders and directing the convicts to return to prison within a fortnight. The court has said, and it's a scathing indictment of the state of Gujarat. The court has said that the law is clear. The appropriate government is the government where the accused are tried and sentenced.
We welcome the Supreme Court order. It's a very important order because at least it does hold some hope for justice. And importantly, the comments of the Supreme Court also point to the culpability of the central government and the Gujarat government, led by the Bharatiya Janata Party in both cases. And we hope that the hearings which are going to continue will ultimately end in justice for Bilkis Bano and for all women of this country.
Justice has been finally given to Bilkis Bano, but what the court also forced on is the fact that abuse of power. You've said that the BJP should apologize over the case.
Yes, because it was BJP's responsibility as they were in power when this heinous crime happened on Bilkis Bano, that they could have prevented it and they could have easily ensured that justice would have been done in the Gujarat state. But because they were standing with the people who were accused and later on they were convicted in Maharashtra, instead of standing with the victim, BJP has always stood with these perpetrators of this heinous crime. And that is why these rapists and convicts were released by the state BJP government. Their 2 MLAs were on that committee. And then one of the MLAs called these rapists as sanskari people. And then the Union Home Ministry, on a letter dated July 11, 2022, issued a letter which ensured that these rapists were released early and remission was given. So that is why I feel that BJP, instead of standing with Bilkis Bano, was and still standing with these convicts. And that is why you have demanded that now when the court have said that the state is complicit with these people, it is a rightful demand that both the state government and the central government headed by the Prime Minister should apologize to Bilkis Bano.
Central government had distanced itself from the whole issue.
How can you distance yourself when you issue a letter issued by the Home Ministry headed by Shri Amit Shah, a letter dated July 11, 2022, they approved the remission and the premature release of convicts.
बिल्किस बानो पे आज कोर्ट ने कहा है कि वापस जितने भी कन्विक्ट थे उनको वापस जेल जाना चाहिए और गुजरात कोर्ट नहीं डिसाइड कर सकती है, रिमिशन के ऊपर डिसाइड नहीं कर सकती।
सुप्रीम कोर्ट के इस फैसले की जितनी भी सराहना की जाए उतनी कम है। नारी शक्ति का इतना क्रूर अपमान कभी नहीं हुआ जितना बिल्किस बानो मामले में हुआ। किस तरह से एक प्रेग्नेंट औरत को किस तरह से सामूहिक बलात्कार का शिकार बनाया गया और उसके जो अभियुक्त थे कैसे उनको क्षमादान किया गया। ये नारी जो शक्ति है, जो नारी हमारी प्रेरणा की स्रोत है, ये उसका सबसे बड़ा अपमान है। मैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट के फैसले का स्वागत करता हूं।
This is a welcome judgment, more so when last year we saw horrifying sights of people belonging to a particular party welcoming these criminals, garlanding them, honoring them in social functions. This came as a shock. But today the Honorable Supreme Court has restored the faith of every single Indian that in today's India, the caste or the religion of the criminal or the victim of a crime will not decide whether that person will get justice or not. We welcome this judgment. It restores our confidence.
The opposition there welcoming the Supreme Court judgment that came to the fore in the Bilkis Bano case, the remission quashed there. So far, we haven't had anyone from the BJP come out. We'll keep an eye out on that and for those developments in that big story. But for now, it's time for a quick break. Back in just a few minutes.
The Pathan of the big screen. The Jawan who lights up a billion hearts. Meet India's biggest superstar at Indian of the Year 2023. RP Sanjeev Goenka Group presents Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January, 6 p.m. onwards. Brought to you by with his effortless charm and 3 mega blockbusters, the king of Bollywood is coming to Indian of the Year 2023. 10th January 2024, 6 p.m. onwards on CNN News 18.
Welcome back. This is Nation at 5 and we have some breaking news that's now coming in. Mahua Moitra, who has been expelled from the Lok Sabha over breach of conduct as far as the Member of Parliament goes, now has an eviction notice that has been pasted at her official residence here in the national capital. CNN News 18 has accessed that eviction notice for you. Remember, she had approached the Delhi High Court asking for directions, but that plea was disposed of. She withdrew from the High Court in Delhi here. She had asked for the body to ensure that in accordance with law her eviction takes place. She also wanted initially that she be allowed to stay at this residence until the 2024 general elections, but she withdrew the plea. The plea was then disposed of by the Delhi High Court. Now the eviction notice has been put up at her official residence. Pallavi, my colleague, now joining us, getting us more details. Pallavi, what's the timeline that Mahua Moitra is looking at? By when does she have to vacate the residence?
See, Puna, the procedure and the rules are very simple. The moment you are expelled as a member of parliament, you have to leave your official residence within the month. That's the kind of timeline which you are given. And in the case of Mahua Moitra, she never got any relief from there, and she was asked to go back to the Estates Department. And it's the Estates Department which essentially decides from the pool what kind of accommodation has to be allotted to a member of parliament. Now, the eviction notice essentially means his time is running out. She will have to vacate the residence, failing which, in one case, for example, I remember the case of Adhir Ranjan Chaudhary Poonam, when he had refused to evict his home and remove his belongings, forcibly they came in and removed his belongings. That is something which can happen in an ultimate case in case she still refuses to follow the procedure. An official letter with the eviction notice is going to be sent to her yet again, so that she cannot make any other excuse. Also, very quickly, when the court hears on her behalf, also with the point that she fears that she would be forcibly evicted, she would be thrown off the streets, and all her belongings would also be done so, and therefore she wanted a protection from that. That relief again has not been given to her.
Right, how's your response to this eviction notice is something that we'll keep an eye out on. But for the moment, Pallavi, thank you so much for getting us the latest. That's all we could pack in for you in this edition of Nation at 5. But before I let you go, here's a quick reminder of what awaits you 48 hours from now. It's India's biggest awards night at CNN News 18's marquee event. Here's what's expected at Indian of the Year 2023.
It is India's biggest awards night, and we can share with our viewers that India's biggest superstar, Shah Rukh Khan, will be there on the 10th of January, 6 p.m. onwards, right here on CNN News 18, on TV, on our digital media platforms.